That's going to be a St. Clairsville touchdown. First play of the game. Hello, touchdown Huskies. Wide open, touchdown Ohio Valley. All right, welcome in to tonight's episode of Hometown Huddle. It is September 3rd in Cadiz, Ohio. Beautiful this time of year, as is everywhere else in the Ohio Valley. Got some things to talk to you about tonight. Obviously, we're in the midst of the football season. Ohio has played 2 weeks of high school football, West Virginia with 1 week under their belt. We'll talk about all of that, but I did want to touch on the OVAC. The standings came out for some other sports. If you're a volleyball fan, we're talking volleyball tonight. We're actually leading the show with it. We're talking volleyball, we're talking soccer, we're talking boys and girls soccer, all kinds of OVAC stuff, and those will be updated weekly, so we will probably every other week give you a update on where those things are at. I will say I might have to calm down and take a breath for a second, because as you know, and as I know, there is an extraordinary amount of pollen. I think it's pollen in the air. It might be mugwort, if you've heard of that. And so, because of that, the ability to breathe through the nose has been restricted. I don't know about you. I don't know if you deal with the same issues or not, but I know for me, this is really weird and off topic, but I promise we'll get back on track here in a second. Just had to explain this. One of the quick fixes for congestion for me is physical exertion or exercise, and I guess the only positive to take away from all of this is at any point in the day, I could just jump down and start doing some push-ups. I don't know if the form is good or not, but I get moving around, and that seems to open up the nasal passages, as I believe they're called. All right, I'm your host, Drake Watson, by the way. Once again, welcome into Hometown Huddle. We need you to, before we get started, as always, I need you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Very important that you do that. I need you to, if you're watching on Facebook, I need you to share it. You can share it to your profile. You can send it to any of your friends. If you're a teacher, if you're a coach, if you are a player, an athlete, if you are just a fan, if you're a parent, no matter what you are, share it with the people that you know and the people that you think would enjoy similar content. We try to provide something around here at Hometown Huddle to where you don't have to, you're only in the stands in the fall. You're only in the stands on a Friday night, maybe a Thursday night, and that's really your only opportunity to talk with your fellow Ohio Valley High School sports fans. Well, we look to provide an additional opportunity for us to talk. I'm the one talking, and a lot of the questions that I ask are rhetorical. So if you're talking to your TV or your cell phone screen back to me, it might get a little odd. Early sip from the cup here, just to get things moving along. All right. And if you're listening on podcast, 5 stars, send it to your friends, all the good things. Let's talk OVAC volleyball standings. Those came out Monday night. In the Class 5A, we're only going to go through the top 4 here. Leading the way is Morgantown at 7-1. We've got an undefeated Vincent Warren right behind them at 9-0. University comes in at 3rd at 6-2. John Marshall in 4th place at 2-1. In Class 4A, OVAC volleyball, Beaver Local leading the way, undefeated at 4-0. Oak Glen in number 2 at 7-1. 7-0 St. Clairsville, undefeated volleyball team. They're in 3rd place. East Liverpool is 4-1 at number 4. We've got a, what do you call it? It's not a trio, but a quartet. I don't know. Maybe that's music or something. It's the 3A. We've got 4 undefeated teams here. Number 1, Shenandoah. Number 2, Buckeye Trail. Number 3, Columbiana. And number 4, East Palestine. Those teams sitting at 6-0, 5-0, 6-0, and 5-0 respectively. Moving down to AA, leading the way is Clay Battelle at 3-4. Number 2 is River at 3-2. Toronto also 3-2, sitting right behind River, and in 4th place is Lisbon at 3-3. In the single A OVAC volleyball standings, again, the first ones that have come out this season, we will continue to update you on what these look like as we move closer to the championship in the middle of October. Single A, leading the way, Conotton Valley, 5-1. Number 2 is Heartland Christian at 6-3. Weirton Madonna right behind at 4-3. And Frontier at 3-4. So that's a quick glimpse at the OVAC volleyball standings as we sit here on September 3rd. Those standings coming out just a couple of days ago. Let's move along now to boys soccer. These are, I guess, subdivided into 5A, 4A, and on the OVAC's list in their standings, they've got the 1 through 3A kind of all bunched together there. So same thing, I believe, with girls soccer. So let's start with boys soccer here. Steubenville leading the way in Class 5A at 3-0. Right behind them is Parkersburg South at 2-1. John Marshall also 2-1. They are right behind Parkersburg South, and 1-1 Morgantown at 4th. Moving along to Class 4A. Number 1, St. Clairsville, undefeated at 4-0. Likewise with Union Local, they are 5-0 at number 2. Beaver Local 3-1, coming in at 3rd currently. And Lindsley at 1-2 at 4. Now for our last kind of 1 through 3 class in the OVAC boys soccer standings. Number 1, Wheeling Central Catholic, 3-1. Behind them, Steubenville Central. Steubenville, I thought about this as I was writing this down. Again, not to get off topic, but we've got Wheeling Central Catholic, we've got Steubenville Catholic Central, we've got Tuscarawas. I don't even know what order they go in. We just need to choose one and move with it. The amount of times I said Wheeling Catholic Central on Friday for their football game, I was beside myself with how many times I screwed that up. And here we are again, not learning from our mistakes. Anyway, number 2 is Steubenville Catholic Central at 3-1. Behind them, Wood County Christian at 4-0. And Trinity Christian at 2-1. That's a look at your boys soccer standings in the OVAC. Again, we will continue to update those as we move along and move closer to the to naming an OVAC champion in all of these sports. Moving along now to girls soccer. Got a lot of good teams at the top of Class 5A. Wheeling Park, University, and Steubenville, the top 3 in that class, all at 4-0. And right behind them in 4th place is Parkersburg South at 1-1. In 4A, we've got Beaver Local at 5-0. We've got Lindsley behind them at 2-1. Indian Creek at 2-2. And East Liverpool in 4th at 1-2. And now for our last, our bottom class here, single A, double A, and triple A. Wheeling Central Catholic 4-0, leading the way in that class. Steubenville Catholic Central at 3-1, right behind them. In 3rd is United at 3-3, and rounding out the top 4 is Shenandoah at 1-4. That is a look at your OVAC volleyball, boys soccer, and girls soccer standings as we see it on September 3rd. Let's take a quick break, and I'll come back. We'll talk high school football. We've got a lot of games to break down. Oak Glen and Weirton. I watched that game. I was at Union Local and Wheeling Central Catholic, and before we reveal too much, let's take a break and I'll come right back. Hey, quick timeout. Little stoppage in the action. I wanted to ask you, are you subscribed to the channel, following the Facebook page, 5 stars on the podcast format? If not, that's all we need you to do. That's all it takes, just one press of a button, and you help us out immensely and help us deliver great content to you. Also, sponsorship packages are now available. You want your company's logo on Hometown Huddle and join us? Hit us up. Email drakewatson@harcomedia.com for more information about sponsorship packages. And with that, back to the show. All right, we usually don't get to take a break that early into the show, but needed to catch my breath as I was explaining to you before we took that and had to rattle off a lot of things quite quickly. And once again, that was me down. If you're listening on podcast, that was me at Shady Side telling you all the things that I always tell you and have to pester you with, the subscribe, the like, and all those things. And once again, those sponsorship packages will be available to you upon an email to drakewatson@harcomedia.com. I would spell it, but frankly, I don't know if I can spell my name at this point. All right, so I told you last week that I might go to the Weirton game when Oak Glen comes to town, and I watched the game through my TV screen. The game was on Channel 9, and I had to get ready for the game the next day, so Rob and Tony did a great job on the call. So I watched this game, but got a really good breakdown on it. Final score, Oak Glen 32, Weirton 14. That is even a little bit deceiving. It looks like a big Oak Glen win. It was probably even bigger than that. Weirton, both of their touchdowns came in the 4th quarter, and the very last one came on the very last play of the game. I want to show you just taking a look at how this game went for both teams. One of the ways I like to try to break a game down, or at least start to, is first of all, conversions are big, but the drive chart, right? What did you do offensively when you had the football? And you look at Oak Glen, let's go in order. Touchdown, touchdown, punt, punt, touchdown, touchdown, fumble, interception, turnover on downs. They scored on 4 of their 9 possessions. That is not counting the end of the first half when I don't know if they took a knee or if they just ran out the clock. But 4 of their 9 possessions they scored on. That's pretty good. That's what you would want. We'll take a look at the Weirton drive chart now. Safety, punt, interception, downs, 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 safety, fumble, touchdown, touchdown. They scored on 2 of their 10 possessions. I think it's clear anybody that watched this game, not only do both of these teams have work to do because outside of, it was Logan Murray that had 2 long touchdown runs in the beginning of the game. Outside of that, Oak Glen, not to take anything away from Coach Miller's squad, but I thought they played kind of more so to the level of Weirton after those 2 long touchdown runs, and that really set the tone for the entire game. But Weirton, it was just glaring. The offensive line, for Weirton to do, we talked about last week, if Weirton wants to improve on last season's record, remember I said both of these teams went 1-9 last season, so the winner of this game would be halfway to improving their record this season and getting 2 wins. That's simple math. Oak Glen was able to do that. If Weirton wants to do that this season, their offensive line is going to have to play much better. I'm not going to be one to come on this show and tell you that those high school athletes are bad, but I don't think it's a secret they didn't play well, right? I think 2 things can be true at once. I think you can, be a good, solid unit of players or athletes and have a lot of skill and capability and talent, and you can still go out on the football field and not play well. And I think if you're looking to be optimistic about Weirton, that's the way you want to go on that. Again, that's more so me saying, look, I'm not saying that any of these athletes are bad, but that's completely different from saying that they didn't play well, that they played bad. And that's the reality of it. The offensive line for Weirton needs to play much better. They got to snap the ball much better. We talked about the 2 safeties that Weirton had. They had issues outside of those 2 safeties on snapping the ball all throughout the night, and they had issues stopping Oak Glen just in general. One of the guys, I talked about Logan Murray, he set the tone on the ground for Oak Glen, really did a nice job finding some holes, had to be patient and kind of work behind his blocks, but he was able to rip off touchdown runs of, where do we have it here? Touchdown runs of 65 and 39, all within the first quarter. Before 4 minutes had gone by in the first quarter, he had those 2 touchdowns. So that was big for them. But then the other guy that stood out for me was Cam Hebrock. He played on the offensive line, and he, I believe, played linebacker. Maybe that hybrid, hit the microphone. Maybe the hybrid linebacker defensive end position. But he defensively was in the backfield, I kid you not, every other play. It seemed like he just lived in the Weirton backfield. And again, that's why I'm not going to be quick to say that the Weirton offensive line is bad. When you've got guys like Cam Hebrock shooting through A, B, or C gap, anybody can look bad. Anybody can have a bad game. And I know I'd have a bad day, and I'd probably wake up down here at the hospital if I had to go against Cam Hebrock. He lived in the backfield defensively and offensively. Here's kind of a discipline thing for Weirton. One note, and you know this if you watch the game, every single time, once again, Oak Glen scored 4 touchdowns, right? So you think 28 points, roughly, somewhere around there. And they had a good kicker as well. But on every single PAT attempt, Oak Glen lined up to kick it every single time. Weirton was called for either offsides or encroachment. Just a discipline thing. Like, the only thing that needs to change to clean that up, we talk about cleaning things up, it's never that simple, but in practice, it's as simple as watching the football, and you don't move until it moves. And so because they jumped off sides every single time, that put the ball at the 1 yard line. So Oak Glen said, well, let's just go for 2. We need 1 yard. We're going to put 54 in the backfield, and he'll just take off and run with it. And they did that, and they scored that way and did a great job. Cam Hebrock, the Wildcat quarterback of all people, scoring the 2-point conversions in one time, very Tebow-esque. He took the snap, He took a step and a half forward and then last second jumped up through the ball. It was a thing of beauty, and Oak Glen was able to really defeat Weirton in a big way on Thursday night. So big win for TJ Miller and his staff to start his career there. And they being Oak Glen host St. Mary's this Friday as they move on, look to go 2-0. We'll see what they can do throughout the rest of the season. Weirton plays host to John Marshall on Friday as they look to bounce back. They'll have other opportunities to bounce back this season, but that's a look at the Oak Glen and Weirton game. Let's move along. As you hopefully know by now, if you don't know, if you're new around here, I'm at usually at least one high school football game every weekend. The game that I was at this past Friday was Union Local at Wheeling Central Catholic. I had that game on KISS 95.7 doing play-by-play. So if you were driving in your car and you happened to switch that station at that time, that's probably what you heard. And you heard what sounded like and what really was a classic game. Final score, Wheeling Central Catholic 25, Union Local 19. That's the game that I was at last Friday night. So the game lived up to the hype. We came on this show last week and said, I think this could be a close game, and it really was. Here's how I remember this game as I go through it. It was 17-13, Wheeling Central led at halftime, and one of Union Local's touchdowns was a punt return. So some people look at that as a fluke play, other people look at it as a very serious thing, but I kind of view it as, okay, so save that one play on special teams of all things, and Wheeling Central's really got a good grip on this game, partially, perhaps mainly because they never let Brody Perzanowski in that Union Local rushing attack, they never let that take control of the game. Outside of another big play by Colby Carpenter on the ground, he had a long touchdown run. You add that to the punt return for a touchdown, and that's all Union Local was able to do in the first half. So one big play on offense and one big play on special teams. Outside of that, the Jets were not able to methodically move the football, and Perzanowski was shut down for a large part of that first half. So because of that, Wheeling Central made it clear that Colby Carpenter was going to have to win the game for Union Local with his arm, throwing the football. And just kind of the feeling that you got in the stadium, that game was at Wheeling University. Union Local I'm not going to assume anything about their coaching staff or their players, but just the feeling that I got was, whoa, like they didn't expect to have to do that. Cade Coronis, the running back for Wheeling Central, he was kind of the MVP of the first half, had a rushing touchdown, had a long receiving touchdown, got things going for the Maroon Knights. But the second half, Union Local did a really good job of making adjustments. I thought they ran the ball much better. They went to that power I formation where Carpenter was under center. They had two fullbacks, and then Perzanowski was the last guy in the backfield. They were able to run the ball. They didn't score, but I should say they didn't score in the third quarter. They shut down Wheeling Central in the third quarter as well. And we got much of the same in the fourth quarter until finally things got a little more dire and Union Local had to throw the football. Colby Carpenter got into a little bit of a rhythm, and with 1:46 to go, he throws a touchdown pass of 16 yards to Carson Gergatis. And I hope I'm saying that right. I really hope I said that right because it's the way I said it on the radio on Friday night. Back of the end zone, really impressive play. And I'm like, yep, that's it. At that point, as I'm watching that ball go through the air and be caught, I'm thinking, wow, like Union Local just, the game was up in the air and they just went up and snatched it. That's the feeling I got until I looked back at the clock and I saw 1:46 to go. And I feel like everybody, myself and Jeff that I was doing the game with, felt like that might be a little too much time for the Maroon Knights. So Wheeling Central gets the ball. It's 19-17. Union Local misses the extra point. And Wheeling Central gets the ball. Union Local plays. I don't know if this was by design. I don't know if this was, their decision. I don't know if it was just a bust in coverage throughout the entire series, but very soft coverage, very off coverage throughout that last drive. And Wheeling Central's just dinking and dunking and throwing these short passes on the sidelines the entire time. The clock is stopped. And 36 seconds later, they're able to find Max Oliash, who hadn't made a difference. I said last week on the show, I said in the pregame, I had said throughout the entire day that I thought Max Oliash, he's the 6'7" receiver for Wheeling Central. I thought he could make a difference and make some plays that would be pivotal in this game. He had done virtually nothing in the game up until there was a minute and 10 left on the clock. And he finds he finds the football in his hands in the end zone from 23 yards out. Wheeling Central wisely makes the decision to go for two. Union Local was at that point, they were what would that be? One of three on their extra point attempts. And so it's 23-19. They go for two, make it 25-19, 6-point game. If Union Local scores a touchdown, they might miss their extra point again, and we go to overtime. So Union Local definitely had plans of doing that. They had plans of going down, scoring. They had a minute 10 left. If Central could score in 30 seconds, why couldn't the Jets? And they look to make some plays, and then Joey Hall, the defensive back for Wheeling Central, makes an outstanding play. I almost lost my mind on the radio because he jumped back, and we all remember what happened in 2014 when Odell Beckham Jr. made that catch. That's the first thing that kind of popped in my mind when Joey Hall made a game-sealing interception to really steal a win, or to seal the win, I should say, for Wheeling Central. So I thought the difference in the game was Wheeling Central's ability to make Union Local one-dimensional for most of the night. They couldn't run the ball. They had to throw the ball, and they didn't do a great job of that. They did well, didn't do quite well enough to win. And Union Local, that soft coverage on the last drive just, I think, really cost them. So those are things that they're going to take a hard look at, and we'll talk about their upcoming game in just a moment. Wheeling Central is going to take a trip to Beverly, Ohio to take on Fort Fry. Good stuff down there. Jukebox Pizza is where they need to go after that game. And Union Local pays visit to Indian Creek on Friday night. And that, my friends, I don't know if I can call you friends, viewers, listeners, that is the perfect segue to what we were going to talk about next. I've got some games of the week that we are keeping an eye on, and that we are very much so looking forward to. And the first one is Union Local at Indian Creek. We've been talking about this game since, if I'm not wrong, July. So we've had a lot of anticipation leading up to this game. Indian Creek held up their end of the deal, and they're coming into this thing undefeated at 2-0. Union Local, I don't want to say, I got to thinking about this just to kind of slow down and give a little story here. I got to thinking about this. How often do you think teams actually overlook a team, right? Like Union Local, everybody's known they have this big game coming up in week 3 with Indian Creek. And a very popular, I'm guilty of it, a very popular talking point is, they can't overlook Wheeling Central. I got to thinking about that, and I'm like, you know what? I could almost guarantee they didn't overlook Wheeling Central. If you overlook Wheeling Central, which they're smart enough to not make that mistake, I think everybody in the Valley is. If they overlook Wheeling Central, that game is not that close. That was a very competitive and close game between two really good teams. Neither one of them had their eyes fixated on their next ball game. So I don't think Union Local, I don't think them having one loss heading into this thing and preventing it from being a battle of unbeatens, which what kind of weight does that hold if they're only going to be 2-0 anyway? I don't think that's because they had this game circled when they didn't have the Wheeling Central game circled. But that's just the way things went. Not to go on a little bit of a rant there, but I have been guilty of saying, don't overlook this, don't overlook that. They're not going to overlook that. Nobody lacks that kind of, I guess, wisdom, to put it bluntly. Everybody knows that they can't overlook a game. Indian Creek, if they watch the Wheeling Central film, they have the game plan here. Stop Brody Perzanowski, stop the Union Local running game, and make Colby Carpenter beat them with his arm. I'm not saying Carpenter can't do it, but I think Indian Creek increases their chances, especially at home, if they're able to prevent Union Local from running the football, controlling the clock, and controlling the game. If you're Union Local, you have to, do the one thing that Creek's going to try to stop them from doing, and that is establish Brody Perzanowski and that running game, control the clock, control the ball, control the game, really, if you can do those things. Again, they had success with the power eye in the second half against Wheeling Central. Maybe they go back to that. Maybe they catch the Redskins off guard here and there. And if they have to throw, if they get in a situation where they got to throw the football to win the game, I think it's very important that Carpenter is protected. That jersey, it wouldn't really get dirty because of the nice, gorgeous turf at Kettlewell Memorial Stadium. But they got to keep him upright. They got to keep his jersey clean. and he's got to be on time, on target, and in rhythm with his passing, because I don't think there's a path for Union Local, or really any team for that matter, to count on winning a game if your quarterback has to scramble and run 30 yards back. I saw CJ Carr do that on Sunday night. Ran 25 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Still threw a touchdown pass, but a lot of times when you do that and you try to scramble and make plays and throw off schedule, that's how Union Local lost the game last week. Because, and I'm not saying that's Carpenter's fault. That's very much so. That's very much a product of what Wheeling Central was able to do up front. If that offensive line can protect Carpenter and give him time to throw quickly and in rhythm, I think that'll be the key to success as far as throwing the football for Union Local on Friday night. But again, you can't try to make a living off of broken plays. If you are constantly outside of the pocket, if you are constantly 10 yards behind where you got the ball when it was snapped, the best thing for Union Local is to just throw it away. Don't make any kind of mistakes. And they know what those kinds of mistakes looks like when somebody like Joey Hall is in the defensive backfield. So I'm expecting a close game. The winner puts themselves in a great position to finish with a good record, and really they put themselves in a good position to achieve the things they're looking to achieve as it relates to not only playoff seeding, but the record. Obviously, Union Local is trying to improve. They went 8-2 in the regular season last year. They're trying to improve on that. They got to run the table to go 9-1 from here on out. And once again, I think both of these teams, when it's all said and done at the end of October and we've got the pumpkins all around, I think both of these teams are going to have a lot of wins. So big playoff points on the line up in Wintersville. Let's move along to a game. I can't remember if I talked about this game a few weeks ago or not, but I feel like I remember making some of the same points as I'm about to make right now in the past. If you'll remember, I told you when we looked at Buckeye Local's schedule, I may have said this on the Buckeye 8 breakdown, which was a separate video last week, which was a travesty on my part that I allowed us to do that. But I said there'd be opportunities on their schedule to get some wins. They'd get some favors, which was probably not the right way to say that. Shadyside goes to Buckeye Local on Friday night. Now, here's the thing about you have opportunities to win some games. This should be a win. Okay, they actually have to get the win. Shadyside's not just going to walk up there into World War II Memorial Stadium and hand them the game. Nobody's going to do that. They have to actually grab the game and win it. Because Shadyside's walking into that thing thinking, this is one of the games that they can win. And so both of these teams are going to try as hard as they can to win the game. I think that's a very roundabout way to say something that's entirely obvious. But, just saying that so that we don't paint this as a layup for either one of these teams. Let's take a look at the series history and stay on subject here. The series history, again, they started in 2021. Series tied 2-2 all time. The road team has won every single game, and Shadyside has 2 wins, and the 2 wins that they have been shutouts both times. In 21, Shadyside won at Buckeye Local 35-0. In 2022, Buckeye Local won at Shadyside 28-13. 2 years ago, Shadyside won at Buckeye Local again 26-0, and just last season, Buckeye Local went down to Shadyside and defeated the Tigers 41-20. Interesting side note, I think it's interesting. Shadyside has one of the longest, I think Coldwater has the longest streak in the state of Ohio as far as consecutive playoff appearances at 28. Shadyside is at 20, if you can believe it. And they've actually appeared in the playoffs in the postseason 24 out of the last 25 seasons. But there's obviously less room for error now with the 12-team playoff. That was a big talking point over the summer. And 2 of the last 3 seasons, all of the last 3 seasons, they've been 3-7 at the end of the regular season. And 2 out of those seasons, they would not have made a 12-team playoff, although they did make the 16. So this is, again, going to be a big game for both of these teams as far as playoffs and many other things. And both of them going to try as hard as they can to get the win. So we're looking forward to that one. Again, we'll update you. I will say the Fantastic 50 line, if I know I didn't mention this. If you didn't see last week's episode, I talked about Fantastic 50. Great site, You need to go to it. Drew Pasture's Fantastic 50. Find your team, find your region. I'm not going to take the time to explain everything as thoroughly as it can be explained on that site, but the projected margin, to go back for a second, Indian Creek is projected to beat Union Local by 2. Buckeye Local expected to beat Shadyside by 1. So obviously very much flip a coin kind of games. We expect both of those to be very close. Moving along, the other game that we have that is one of our biggest kind of games of the week here at Hometown Huddle that we're keeping an eye on. I'll be keeping a very close eye on because this is the one game that I will be at this weekend. I told you that I'm at a high school football game every weekend, and this will be the one. I recently got into the world of radio play-by-play, and this one live, KISS 95.7, pregame show at 6:40, kickoff at 7 o'clock from beautiful Columbiana County, Ohio. There are two things that I have never had any association with, still don't have any association with, but blindly I'm a homer of. One of those, Shadyside football. The other one, Columbiana County. Beautiful places in Columbiana County. Always have a great time up there and will enjoy my time up there before, during, and after the game. This game, St. Clairsville at Beaver Local. Once again on the radio, KISS 95.7. This is the fourth meeting of all time. Kind of these teams not super familiar with each other. Only 3 previous meetings, 2 of which were a long time ago. I may or may not have been alive when St. Clairsville won in 2000. Well, they didn't win in 2000. Beaver Local won in 2000. But because I don't want to stop and go over it again, we'll backtrack. In 1999 is when St. Clairsville won, 28-20. Beaver Local did win in 2000, 41-27. And St. Clairsville won in their third meeting last season, 27-21. We've talked about St. Clair. First of all, 18 is way too big of a number. That's the Fantastic 50 margin on this game, projected margin. St. Clairsville is projected to win by 18. I think that's way too big. It's not like you can go and put your money on it or anything. We would never do or endorse anything like that, so it's not going to move. But I don't think Drew Pasture's site, well, I know for a fact that his site doesn't really factor in players or talent or coaches or anything, because with over 700 schools in Ohio, you just can't keep track of all that stuff for every team. So he's not thinking of guys like, or I shouldn't say him, but that site, that model is not thinking of guys like Wade Foster, the quarterback for Beaver Local. For St. Clairsville, it's almost defensively as simple as, can they contain him? Can they contain that rollout? Can they contain his ability to not only run the football, but throw it exceptionally well down the field? If you tell a Beaver Local fan, if you want to look at it from the other way, if you tell a Beaver Local fan or coach, you just say, Foster's going to play to his potential on Friday night. All they'll say back to you is, how much did we win by? I think this game, not to put the entire game on his shoulders, there's much more to go into it than that, but I think if he plays well for Beaver Local, they give themselves more than a chance in this game. They'll be at home, St. Clairsville, about an hour bus ride up Route 7, so St. Clairsville obviously needs this win as well. We talk about them like staying on schedule as far as throughout their schedule. They want to kind of win their games leading up to that big stretch of games from week 6 to week 9. This is their first test, and this is a game that, again, I don't think St. Clairsville is overlooking. I think when we talk about overlooking, that's more so folks like you and me, because I didn't initially have this game circled, but when Beaver Local did what they did to Cleveland Shaw and they did what they did to Brooke, and then you watch their quarterback play, all of a sudden, this is St. Clairsville's biggest test since the Norwayne game. And it might be their biggest test until the Wheeling Park game. Not to take anything away from Lindsley or East Liverpool in between there, but I think this is a big game for St. Clairsville and Beaver Local. Much like the UL and Creek game, I think a lot of playoff points are going to be on the line when it's all said and done, and we're looking at this in the middle of October. Again, I talked to you about Wade Foster. We talked a few episodes ago about Sam McLean and St. Clairsville. I'm going to be really interested to see how they want to get their playmakers the ball, if it is that kind of perimeter game with a young offensive line. Now, that offensive line, after a road trip to Norwayne, a road trip to Brownsville, one of those obviously much tougher than the other one, that offensive line might not be so young anymore, and they certainly won't be after Friday night. But are they still relying on, or are they relying on at all, that perimeter quick bubble screen kind of game or the outside run? What are they relying on offensively to help out their young offensive line and get their playmakers the ball? So I think there's a lot of things that go into this game, and I'll continue to dive deeper into it as we get closer to Friday night, and we'll look to do, Jeff and I will look to do a great job on the radio. I'm predicting a close game, and I'm hoping for a close game. I think it's two great teams. Should be in for a good one once again. KISS 95.7 on Friday night. Pregame show at 6:40. Kickoff at 7 o'clock. All right, I made a huge mistake. Some of us have trouble saying that. But I had a blunder, if you will. Last week, I talked to you about the Buckeye 8 breakdown. I think I led the show. I opened up with, we've got an entire Buckeye 8 breakdown. That was the language that I used. And then I forgot the whole thing. Like, started going too fast and just skipped by it. And we're not making that same mistake again. You try to learn from your mistakes and not duplicate them. So let's take a look at the Buckeye 8 breakdown for this week. If you saw the Facebook post, we had the scores of these games broken down for you on the nice, pretty graphic. And we hope that was helpful for you, but now we'll break it down a little bit deeper. St. Clairsville 1-1. They defeated Brownsville last week 49-13. That's what we expected in that game. I said it would be I said it wouldn't be pretty, and I wouldn't be pretty in terms of the result of the game. We just talked about they've got to go to Beaver local. They're expected to win by 18. I think that's blasphemy, frankly. I think it'll be a lot closer than that. That might be me being selfish and just hoping for a closer game than that, because that's a game that I'm going to be at. But again, St. Clairsville needs to stay on schedule before they head into the tough part of their schedule. Not that this isn't a tough game, but if they want to do the things that they want to do, they need to take care of business not only in this game against Beaver local, but as they move into that 4-week stretch towards the end of the season. Indian Creek is 2-0. They beat East Liverpool on the road 30-7 last week. Indian Creek beat East Liverpool beat Carrollton, and Carrollton beat Edison, so we're not entirely sure what to make of all of that. The only thing that matters as it relates to Indian Creek is that they're 2-0. They have an opportunity, as we talked about, to go 3-0, and that improves their chances of going 10-0 or 9-1. Obviously, they're reaching for 10-0. They don't want to lose any games. And again, they like to think that they practice well enough and have good enough players and put in enough hard work, to have themselves in a position to go 10-0. So that's what they're looking for, and the big opportunity to do that and stay alive for that this Friday night. East Liverpool lost to Creek 30-7. They're now 1-1. They host Salem next. Salem is expected to win that game by 3 points. Again, this all coming from the Fantastic 50 site. You can look at those numbers for yourself. I think the upcoming game for East Liverpool will teach us a lot about how good they really are, but I still think it's going to be important for us to watch what Carrollton and Edison do throughout the season, just to see how much weight the Carrollton win for East Liverpool. Remember, they beat Carrollton 23-12 in week 1. How much weight does that hold? Carrollton's usually pretty good. Carrollton just beat Edison, but is Edison good? Edison's going to play Creek. Creek and East Liverpool played. You quickly get lost in the tangled web that is the schools that are north of where I'm sitting right now in Jefferson and Columbiana counties. So, obviously, East Liverpool looking for a win, and we're going to see throughout the season how much the one win that they do have so far, how far that can really take them and what that really means for them. Cambridge drops to 0-2. They lost 50-21 at John Glenn. They travel to Meadowbrook next. They are expected to lose by 29. This is a battle of 0-2 teams, and this is a chance for Cambridge to pull an upset. Here's what Cambridge needs to do to pull an upset in any of these teams that are going to have trouble finding wins this season. It is very important that they, and again, there's a reason that they struggle to win games, because oftentimes you don't win games if you can't do the following things. They need to play mistake-free football. That's a given. But if you play mistake-free football and you take advantage of your opportunities, what you open the door for is the chance that your opponent, who may be more talented than you, Cambridge, for all I know, I haven't seen Cambridge in person this season. For all I know, they could be playing 10 teams that are more talented than them. That's fine. I was on a team that beat a team that was far more talented than we are. And you know they're a lot more talented because I was on the team. So that's just to say that Although the other team is more talented, if you play mistake-free football and you take advantage of your opportunities, you don't know when you're going to catch one of those teams on a bad day. And if Meadowbrook or any of the teams on Cambridge's schedule or anybody else's schedule, if they're not up for this game, golden opportunity, as some would say, to pull a big upset and get their first win in a long time. And I know they're looking for that out there in Guernsey County. I'm looking for that from Cambridge. I want nothing more than all these teams that we talk about to do well. So Beaver Local, we already talked about. They defeated Brook and looked good doing so, 26-0. We talked about their St. Clairsville game that they get at home. It would be an upset to, I think, most of the Valley. Probably not us, but it wouldn't be an upset to them because they have the ability, given what they've done and given what they're capable of, to believe that they can make the statement win at home and that it wouldn't be an upset because they have the ability to believe that they can win, to kind of reiterate what I just said. Brook obviously falls to 0-1. They host Lindsley next. That's not the result that Coach Sassini was looking for in his return to his alma mater. But there's an opportunity to do some things right against Lindsley. They'll have opportunities throughout the next couple of weeks to get back on track, and they have a big game in week 5 against Indian Creek. So they'll have an opportunity to kind of build things up. It's week 4 for them. It's 5 for folks on the Ohio side. Harrison Central falls to 0-2. They lost 28-21 at Newcomerstown. They go to Malvern next up on Friday night. They're not expected to win that game. The Hornets, I guess, favored, if you can use that language, by 22. Harrison Central, they got to limit their turnovers. That's the key takeaway, I think, from Friday night's loss. But they also need to, in my opinion, keep the team morale high, keep the spirits up, I guess, down the road here in Cadiz, because if you take away the turnovers from last week's game, it's not a far-fetched idea that they win that ball game. And if they could do better at that, and they can do a little bit better in a couple other areas, then they can find themselves in position to win some games this season. So they just got to continue to play as well as they can and give themselves opportunities to find themselves in close games that they can try to win. Again, they led that game. I don't think anybody knows that they led that game in the fourth quarter. So if they could do that against Malvern and they can do that to some of the other teams on their schedule, I think with enough work at some of the things that have plagued them, I think they'll be confident that they'll be able to pull those kinds of games out. Buckeye Local falls to 0-2. They lost 21-12 at River. We talked about their game with Shadyside coming up. They were expected and projected to lose to River by around 3 touchdowns. Instead, they made it a close game. Well, how is a 9 points? How's a 2-possession game close? It was 14-12 at the end of the game, and Buckeye Local had the football. If you're a Panthers fan, that's what you want, right? Well, they gave themselves an opportunity to win the game, and instead, one play. This isn't a knock at a Buckeye Local by any means. One play holds a ton of weight and can hold a ton of weight in a football game. That one play was a pick 6 that sealed the game for River. Let's say that was a touchdown pass instead. We're what do they say? Singing an entire different hymn. I don't even know if that's the right way to say it, but we're whistling a different tune. I don't know what they say, but Buckeye Local. I'm not going to say they could just as easily be 1-1, but I know they were 1 play away from it or 2 plays away from it. So again, they played well enough to win outside of 1 play at the end of the game. So it's important for them to continue to do what we talked about last week and try to find opportunities on their schedule to find some wins and do what they're supposed to do and try to take care of business throughout this season. Bel Air jumps up to 2-0 with a win at Monroe Central, 44-27 last week. They travel to Barnesville, where they're a huge underdog. Barnesville expected to win that game by 33. Bel Air, I thought that was kind of a test game because of the level of competition that I thought Monroe Central would provide, and maybe they did provide, and Bel Air was just that much better. We talked about them kind of playing up to their competition, pulling an upset because they're not going to have a ton of opportunities this season for games that they're going to be favored in, quote unquote favored in. So once again, we talked about this with Cambridge. We'll talk about it with Harrison and Buckeye and Bel Air. Play mistake-free football, knock Barnesville off their game, and try to catch them on a bad day. That's the very generalized plan for success that folks like you and me get to talk about, and they get to talk about the more complex stuff like how quickly your right tackle can pull around and trap the end. But Barnesville at 2-0. They beat Meadowbrook 51-21 last week. I think the formula for the Shamrocks very simple. Just keep winning. Teams like Bel Air are going to look for them to fall asleep and not be on their game, and so it's imperative for them that they don't do that, and they get they just take care of business and do their job and keep winning as they look forward to that Union local game at the end of the season. They go to Bel Air on Friday night. Did I say Bel Air goes to Barnesville? Barnesville goes to Bel Air on Friday night. Barnesville expected to win once again by 33 points. Union local is 1-1. We talked about them already. With the loss, 25-19 at Wheeling Central. Again, we already talked about them going to Indian Creek. They've got things to clean up again. Mainly the running game. If they can do that, they give themselves a good chance in the Creek game. And they are really looking to get this game to get the results that they want moving throughout their season. Martins Ferry 2-0 in their eyes, in the eyes of the OHSAA, with the win in week 1 not really counting towards their playoff points. They're 1-0. They got the win over Malvern 35-6. We talked about how Malvern is a team that's always looking to, pull an upset over a bigger school. So credit to Martins Ferry. They dismissed any kind of concern about that pretty early on, got a big win. Big test for Martins Ferry coming up. They go to Independence on Friday night. That is a 4-hour bus ride from Martins Ferry. This is going to be a good opportunity for us to find out how good Martins Ferry is. One of the first opportunities we get this season. Independence coming off a 3-point win. They're 1-0, a 3-point win against Herbert Hoover, kind of a West Virginia powerhouse. Herbert Hoover does great things. Independence just beat them, so Martins Ferry at Independence should teach us a good bit about Martins Ferry. All right, one last thing I believe we need to get to this evening. If I forget another segment, which I don't believe I have, but if I do, I don't know what we're gonna do. We're gonna change some things up big time around here. No huddle, very quick. This is, once again, for anybody who's new or doesn't remember from just a week ago. I'm in the same boat. I don't remember things from 10 minutes ago, actually. This is very quickly where we run through all the other teams that we didn't really touch on, all their scores and schedules moving forward. It's very quick and fast-paced. So that's hence the no huddle name. Very up-tempo here. Edison lost to Carrollton 16-14. They go to Southern Local this Friday. Steubenville, I said this would be very quick, but I've got one thing to kind of interject into the no huddle segment. They lost 30-0 at home against Indian Valley. They actually were supposed to play Dunbar from DC on Friday night, but because of scheduling conflicts, that game no longer happening. So Steubenville gives themselves a bye, and they host Cardinal Mooney on September 12th. But I did want to, because we talked about the Steubenville-Indian Valley game not only on last week's show, but back in July, I wanted to show you, this is probably the only time I'll ever look like a genius on this show. I want to show you a clip from last week's show. Let's roll that. You know the last time Steubenville started a season 0-2? Wrong. 1956. I don't know what you said, but it's 1956. That's a possibility on Friday night. When I think about this game, I wonder, is this the kind of game that can go either way, but might not be close? If you can believe that. How does that happen? Here's how it happens. Think about Grady Kinsey, again, the Air Force commit at running back for Indian Valley. Think about him and that rushing attack. If they can't stop Grady Kinsey, and Indian Valley is able to run the ball all night long, they're able to eat up the game clock and control the football, I think that spells bad news for Steubenville. And I think Indian Valley could win big. Again, not saying we called it. We don't predict anything on this show. And I may or may not have cut out all the parts where I said Steubenville might also win the ball game. But again, that's probably the only opportunity I'll have to make myself look like a genius or a genie or somebody who can predict the future. So we really didn't. I thought that was possible. If I had to not put money on it, but if I had to really take my best guess at it, I would not have seen a 30-0. I would not have guessed that would have happened, although I was not entirely shocked because of what Indian Valley has for them. All right, moving on. We got to increase the tempo here. I got to get out of here. Steubenville Catholic Central lost to Strasburg. I was in Steubenville that night. I heard the crowd. I heard the marching band. Good stuff. Unfortunately, I was not at the game. Had family in Steubenville, so heard that game from afar, and I heard a lot of cheers probably when Catholic Central was scoring their 12 points, and then all of a sudden I didn't hear much for the rest of the night. They lost 20-12 against Strasbourg. They host Bishop Rosecrans next up. Toronto beat Lowville on the road 34-6. They go to Wellsville. Connaughton Valley beat Millersport 46-6. Another dominant win for the Rockets. They host Newcomerstown next up. That might be a good game under the radar. If it's not, then I never said that. But if it is, I'll definitely clip that and play that on next week's show. Buckeye Trail lost 30-6 against Crooksville. They host Newark Catholic next up. Shadyside gets their first win of the season, 36-22 at Southern Local. They go to Buckeye Local, as we said. Lindsley loses their opener, 32-7, and they go to Brook next up. Wheeling Park, a late safety, gives them a 23-7 win over Parkersburg South. They go to Spring Mills next up. Cameron defeated Clay Battelle in a close 22-16 game. They've got Expression Prep, the same Expression Prep that Martins Ferry embarrassed in week 1. John Marshall. How about this? We've got a high school kicker making a game-winning field goal. Great stuff, John Marshall. Great people at John Marshall. I'll always have a appreciation for the folks down there in Marshall County. They beat Marietta 23-21. They go to Weirton next on this Friday. Monroe Central lost 44-27 against Bel Air. They go to River, and River beat Buckeye Local. We talked about those games already with our Buckeye 8 breakdown. River beat Buckeye Local 21-12, and they host Monroe Central in that Monroe County rivalry game. That's all we've got for tonight's episode of Hometown Huddle. I've got to get out of here. I've got to do something about my nostrils not working properly and haven't been for the last 3 weeks. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Until next time, see you next week.